If you've ever wanted to mass produce cards using an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock, then stick around because I'm going to show you how to do it the easy way. For those of you who are new to my channel, thanks for stopping by. My name is Kathya and I'm so glad you're here. Today's technique is certainly not new, but a little bit of a twist on mass producing cards. I realize there are many techniques where crafters cut their cardstock to a small size and then place it in their stamp positioner, but today I'm going to show you how I do it, and this is brand new to me and I've tried it and I really like it, so I can't wait to share it with you. On screen, I have a standard piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall, and I'm using a T-square to draw two lines to create a plus sign right down the middle, so I have four separate quadrants. I'm also creating a guideline on each side of those middle lines that is 1/8 inch width. This is going to help me align my stamps inside those guidelines, and it will help prevent images from getting cut off when I trim the paper into four separate card panel pieces. Now, I didn't record this before I laminated the cardstock, but I did create another 1/8 inch border around the perimeter of the entire sheet of cardstock. I decided it would be helpful to have that border guideline along the edge as well. And I also added an X through the center of each quadrant so I could easily find center point. I was trying to decide which was the best way to position my guide template so that I could align my stamps. I find it most helpful to place my stamps toward the center of my stamp platform rather than the corner. That often gives me the best impression. The stamp set I'm using is from Catherine Pooler and it's called Grateful Heart. It is no longer available on Catherine Pooler's site, but you can still find it on Ellen Hudson's website. And you may want to grab it if you're interested in it because I know the stamp set is retiring very soon. As I started stamping my design, I probably would have used a different stamp set. And I say that because when I stamped, I realized that the image seems better designed to be stamped along the edge of a card rather than a corner. But because I had taken the time to set up the mass production process, I decided to keep on going and fill in the corners with smaller stamps from the same set. One of the bonuses of doing mass production cards this way is that you have four card panels on one sheet, and it makes it less bulky to pack if you like to color on the go. I find it a little easier to pack several full-size sheets of cardstock rather than A2 size card panels. I did take some time to add smaller stamps on either side of the design to fill in some of the white space and in the corners as you see me doing right here. Now, I should mention that while I'm using a stamp platform that has open edges, it makes it easier for me to have the cardstock stick out, so to speak. And if you don't have a stamp positioner like this one, you can certainly trim your paper in half and still create the 1/8 inch grid lines and mass produce that way using two card panels instead of one sheet. So I hope that made sense. And in case I haven't clearly described what I'm doing, I'm simply flipping my cardstock each time I get a clean impression. And then I should also mention that since I intend to color my images using alcohol markers, I'm going to be using a Memento black ink, which is compatible and doesn't smear when you use alcohol markers. Now here is a close-up of my final template that I'm using. You can see that I created the X's in the middle to help me find center and the 1/8 inch border around the edge. Then I laminated the sheet so I can use it over and over when I want to mass produce several designs. What's great about this is that if you want to use several stamp sets from different companies, you can place your design on one panel and the other stamp set on the panel next to it. This way you have two different designs and you can stamp the images, mass produce them, and have them ready to color on the go. As you can see, I added some smaller images toward the corner to fill up some of the white space. And when I bring this to my paper trimmer, I already know that if I cut it right down the middle vertically, I need to cut it at 4¼ inches and then again horizontally at 5½ inches. Then I have four perfect card panels that I can trim smaller on each edge if I want to have a different colored mat behind it, say like black or something. Now, I wasn't really happy with the extra white space on the corners, so I decided to trim the panels down so that they looked a little bit more balanced. And I also added some dots to fill in the space too to add more interest on the final card. Here is a little bit better of a close-up of this template. I went over the 1/8 inch grid lines with a black marker and then I laminated it. Then I trimmed it on all edges very close to the cardstock. So going forward, when I want to mass produce cards, I simply place my stamps on this template, align it flush to the corner of my stamp positioner, and then pick up the stamps with the door. Then when the stamps are on the door, the laminated template is no longer needed because I know they're exactly where I need them to be to have 4 card panels. Here I'm showing you that you can use any stamp that you want. You can center your designs in the middle using that X center point. And in this particular case, I'm using the stamp set by Pink Fresh Studios called Folk Mandala. And this design and this stamp set, I'll be honest, was a little bit tricky to align. But once I had everything aligned, I figured I might as well mass produce it because that way I can have multiple colors of the exact same design. So on one side, I placed the outline portion, and on the other that has a more solid stamp portion, that allows me to stamp the design and I can have multiple colors. Then when I was finished stamping on those outlines and the colored portion, I simply cleaned off the stamps, switched their position, and then stamped the images on opposite panels. So then I had multiple colors of that same design, and it's super pretty. You can see here too that I was having just a little bit of trouble getting that ink to transfer to the cardstock, but pressing on the door or even adding more sheets of cardstock underneath that one sheet will help by not having to press down so hard to get a nice crisp impression. As I've become a little more experienced with card making and learning more about design, I've learned that making multiples of the same card is really worth it. I used to spend about an hour making one card and then I felt really horrible about parting with it because, let's be real, sometimes we make something, we love how it turns out, and we don't want to part with it, right? I mean, who's with me here? Let me know in the comment section below if you mass produce cards or if you prefer to make them one at a time. So I guess what I'm saying is that if you take the time to create pretty artwork that you intend to give away in the end, why not take a little time to set up your card making to mass produce? It's really worth it in the end, and then you have quite a few cards to choose from when you want to send them out to family and friends. Well, I hope this tutorial was helpful. If it was, please be sure to give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. That really helps my channel. On screen are a couple of videos that might interest you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until I see you in the next one, ciao for now.